Time is usually predictable, ticking forward at a steady, indifferent pace. But scattered across our planet are places where time bends like soft metal. People walk in, feel their senses stretch, and walk out unsure whether they've lost minutes or gained them. Scientists try to fit these anomalies into neat boxes: magnetism, resonance, atmospheric distortion, but the truth is more complicated and much stranger. One of the most fascinating cases is the existence of natural chronostatic zones, areas where multiple environmental factors overlap to distort human time perception. For instance, regions with extremely low frequency vibration, near total silence, and weak visual contrast create conditions where the brain's internal chronometer becomes unreliable. These aren't supernatural portals. They're nature exploiting loopholes in human neurology. But then there are the cases that resist explanation. In 1972, explorers in northern Canada reported a valley where sound dropped off abruptly. Like entering an audio vacuum, their recorded timestamps remained consistent, yet each explorer's subjective account differed by as much as 40 minutes. Later measurements revealed unusual, crystalline structures in the rock that amplified, electromagnetic standing waves, a rare geological fingerprint. Another striking example comes from a remote desert plateau in Chile, where satellite data shows brief fluctuations in local magnetic intensity. Travelers describe feeling paused, as if their thoughts slowed. Cognitive researchers suggest that fluctuating electromagnetic fields might momentarily desynchronize the neural circuits responsible for sequencing events, a mental time lag. In 2003, during a high-altitude experiment in the Himalayas, scientists observed a micro-delay in synchronized atomic clocks placed only 200 meters apart. The difference was tiny, but persistent, hinting that altitude combined with unusual gravitational gradients might create hyperlocal time differentials. And then we have legends that mirror scientific curiosity. Ancient Tibetan manuscripts describe still valleys where practitioners meditated for what felt like hours but returned to find days had passed. While spiritual texts exaggerate, they often encode observations. Extreme altitudes, reduced oxygen, and rhythmic breathing can all distort temporal awareness. Perhaps the most surreal aspect is that many of these time stops operate without visual spectacle. No glowing portals, no swirling fog, just landscapes behaving normally, while quietly bending the rules of experience. It suggests that time isn't a rigid river, but a responsive medium, shaped by environment, biology, and forces we barely understand. If time can stretch or shrink through natural forces, the next question is whether it can shift not only in perception, but in physics itself. Some clues suggest the answer may be yes, not in a sci-fi way, but through tiny, measurable effects that quietly pile up into a bigger mystery. One clue comes from gravitational microgradients, small variations in gravity caused by changes in underground density. Precision clocks in such zones sometimes show tiny but repeatable timing offsets. The shifts are only nanoseconds, yet they prove that Earth's mass distribution gently reshapes the flow of time. Another lead involves magnetic reconnection. Satellites have seen short-lived magnetic portals between Earth and space, where charged particles rush through and local electromagnetic conditions change. No one can say for sure that these events affect time at ground level, but the equations don't completely rule it out. Many famous time anomaly spots sit on natural infrasound corridors, plunge paths for very low-frequency waves. Infrasound can disturb the heart's rhythm, slow thinking, and confuse the brain's internal clock. That might explain why travelers in deserts, mountain passes, or deep valleys sometimes feel that hours shrink or stretch in strange ways. Neuroscience adds more pieces. The hippocampus can compress or expand our sense of duration under stress, cold sensory isolation, or low oxygen. Caves, silent forests, and high plateaus naturally create these conditions. So part of the mystery may be the brain struggling to stay synchronized with its surroundings. Yet some stories still resist clean explanations. In Brazil's Serra de Roncador, explorers report spinning compasses, sudden stillness, and gaps of missing time. Geologists did find magnetized rock there, but the data does not fully match the intensity of the reports. Researchers who study Earth's rotation also point to frame dragging, tiny warps in space-time caused by a rotating planet. Usually they are visible only to very sensitive instruments, but in rare regions the local geology might amplify them just enough to nudge time by a fraction. Then there are the so-called null zones, places where sensors briefly detect drops in background, noise, small electromagnetic spikes, and quick shifts in air pressure exactly when people say they feel suspended or outside time. Events like these are short, hard to repeat, and frustrating for scientists, but they show up too often to ignore. All of this suggests a spectrum. Some places where time stops are mainly psychological. Others grow out of hidden geophysical processes. A few might brush the edges of deeper space-time physics we barely understand. Time is not a perfectly smooth fabric. It can ripple thin or drift depending on where you stand, and in certain rare places. It may bend just enough to remind us how little we truly know.